You don't get a second chance at a first impression. And Forza Horizon 4 understood this really well, and man was I surprised at how good their intro was. This arcadey high-thrill racing game has one of the best intro sequences I've played in a long while, and we're going to talk about what makes it so great. There are different ways designers choose to introduce their games. Some don't bother explaining anything, while others fill their opening moments with safe spaces designed to teach you how to play the game. The problem with both of these approaches is that neither of them take the time to sell you on the fantasy you are about to embark on, and both end up squandering their first impression. The ideal game intro teaches you how to play the game, while also getting you excited about what's in store for you as you keep playing, and most games end up missing the second bit.
Rip and tear until it is done.
Let's take a look at Doom Eternal, for example, and watch how the music, the cinematic shots, and the voice lines just get your blood pumping.
For it is he that they fear, not man, or his armies. They fear the mark of the beast.
And by the time it's over, you're pumped and ready to take on the hordes of hell, but when you finally take control of your character, you're in a small room staring at 3 mindless enemies that pose little to no threat as the tutorial kicks in. This squanders all the hype that was built up and feels like a bit of a letdown. Now, as soon as the tutorial is over, Doom rapidly hits its stride and you get to fulfill the fantasy of unleashing the raging Doomslayer. But it doesn't feel that way immediately. And in a world of game subscriptions, accessible refund options, and where hundreds of new games are coming out each week, your first impression becomes more and more critical to your success. So what does Forza Horizon 4 do super well? Well, for starters, its intro is very similar to how Castlevania Symphony of the Night introduced itself to players many years ago. You start off as a separate character, and your first few screens are a safe space for you to experiment with the controls. After that, you take on Dracula, and once you beat him, a short narrative exposition plays, and then the real game begins. You are introduced to Alucard, and you find out that you're here to kill Dracula again. Except Alucard is already pretty powerful. You have several powerful items at your disposal and easily defeat all enemies with a single hit. This immediately gets you into a state of flow as you deal with large rooms full of enemies. After a few screens of this, you encounter death, and he takes your powers away and leaves you starting from scratch. And where you once were killing enemies with a single hit, now those same enemies are a much harder encounter. But before losing your powers, you get a feel for what the game is going to be like when you get further into it, and now that you've had a taste, you feel more invested in what's to come. Admittedly, many other games use this approach to great effect, but it does have one minor downside to it. Nobody likes the feeling of having things taken away from them, and so your opening moments could have your players feeling disappointed as they lose all their powers and have to slowly get them back again. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at how Forza Horizon 4 introduces itself. You are first met with an unskippable cinematic that does a good job of demonstrating the different parts of the game. The amazing music by Fred V and graphics also helps set the tone as it gradually starts to build up.
I see a festival that never ends.
But the most amazing thing about the intro is how it builds up your excitement and then seamlessly transitions to gameplay. The designers do a lot of clever tricks here that are worth talking about, but let's first see if you can pick up on any of them.
Your dream holiday anymore. It's your dream life. That's the horizon I see. Let me show you. Welcome to autumn. A new beginning for the festival that never ends. Don't go anywhere. Horizon is here to stay.
You see the car racing towards an open canvas, and after a few dramatic cuts, you seamlessly take control of it, and you actually start on the beat, which feels amazing. You're also given control of a car that's already doing nearly 100 miles an hour, which gives you an immediate sense of urgency. Now, the designers also make sure that the road in front of you always has a car to overtake, and just as soon as you overtake one, another comes crashing in from off screen, which keeps you focused on what's to come. It's worth noting that this section isn't a race at all. In fact, your goal is simply to reach the waterfall. This gives less experienced players time to come to terms with the controls while allowing experienced players to just charge ahead. Very similar to what we just saw in Symphony of the Night. And just like Symphony of the Night, you start off racing a pretty endgame car. Since Forza Horizon is at its best when you're driving a high-speed supercar perfectly around some beautiful vistas with some blaring music playing, this intro wastes no time getting you into that state of flow. There's a theme of constantly moving forward that echoes across the whole intro, and once it starts, it's already going and you have to keep up. Just as soon as you feel like you've got a handle on everything, you see the car you're driving speed away from you as the game transitions to winter, introducing one of the key features of Horizon, the seasons. The transition again is pretty seamless because you're literally at the same waterfall, it just looks different because it's winter and frozen over. Similar to before, you get an exciting running start, except in this one you start off airborne driving a much heavier vehicle in a different environment as you begin to experience how different seasons affect gameplay. Now this is an actual race, and you start off in the middle of the pack. The developers used this section to very cleverly introduce a couple of new mechanics: checkpoints and rewind. While the last section was a straightforward drive to a destination, this one is anything but. It's a checkpoint race that has you going all over the wilderness, and when you combine that with the slippery nature of snow and how weird the track is designed, you may find yourself missing one of these checkpoints, and when you do, the game introduces the rewind system. If you are an experienced player who is familiar with checkpoints and who manages this segment of the race easily, they don't need to disrupt your session to teach you something you already know. They don't break the flow unless they absolutely need to, which is something most games don't do. And when the lesson is learned, we transition again. This time we're in spring, and we have a new type of car and a new type of race as we start rallying. Similar to the last section, you begin to see how shifting seasons can impact gameplay, this time with rain and mud. There isn't much this section is trying to teach you other than how rally races feel and maybe what exhibition races are like as you find yourself racing 4 other dirt bikes that are zipping all around you. This is probably the most skill-intensive segment of the intro, so they just leave you to it. You start off in dead last, and the bikes are scripted to stay ahead of you until specific sections of the race.
Red down! Red down!
Looks like I'm the only one left.
Once that's over, the game transitions one final time to summer. By now, the game has taught you everything you need to succeed, and now it's all about delivering an exhilarating climax. The opening scene shows a plethora of different cars you might drive over your time playing the game, giving you a broad range of what to expect. It also introduces a commentator that blasts over the radio whose single purpose is to explain just what on earth is going on here. He introduces what the festival is and that you're in the middle of an epic race to see who gets there first. Which is pretty outlandish, but again, you're back in control of the Senna and you have no time to think about it. This is meant to feel like one epic race, and the developers throw everything they have at you. They employ the same trick again you saw in the first section. Just as soon as you overtake someone, another car comes flying in from off screen and poses a new challenge, and you're neck and neck competing to be first place right up until the very end.
Here, I can see a Centenario, Ferrari FXXK, and a beautiful Bugatti Chiron. And is that a Vulcan? Oh, Horizon, you do not want to miss out on watching this. Look at that Senna go! I mean, the car, sure, but someone's got to be handling that thing. Final straight! I can't breathe!
And once you get there, the music picks up, the logo is revealed, and the ride is over, and you're left with a feeling of exhilaration. You're not going to start off in Forza Horizon 4 racing lavish sports cars. You'll need to start from the very bottom. And remember how death took your powers away in Symphony of the Night? Well, Horizon tries to soften the blow by doing something different. They reveal that the person that was driving the car wasn't actually your character, but the organizer of this whole event. She gets out of the car, walks up to a group of initiates, and you get to create your character right then and there.
Okay, do we have Daniel here?
It's a subtle but clever change that tries to sidestep the negativity of taking things away from you by showing you instead that it wasn't yours to begin with, but that you can aspire to be like that one day. And there you have it. Now you can begin your career in Forza Horizon 4, and the designers can rest easy knowing that they gave you a solid first impression that is worthy of the game you're about to play. If you enjoyed what you experienced so far, odds are you will love the rest of the game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it with your friends and leaving a like and subscribing, since that helps me tremendously. Thanks again, and see you all next time.